said in the report.
Well, hey, for the last couple of months, been really grateful for what Robert's been bringing to our classes, and we've had some great conversations. And just thanks, Robert, for being willing to.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, you've opened up discussions and
Stuck your neck out doing that.
you did, yeah, and you challenged us in a few ways, and I think we're all better for it. So, just want to say thanks, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to do it again. We're gonna.
Is this the last round?
For this
Tonight?
go around, yeah.
Okay.
And then next week we're going to go to Alicia's house, if you guys are interested,
Oh,
and have Bible study there. And then
who's gonna lead that?
I'll lead that / it'll be kind of a group thing, like it normally is. But we'll actually do a little bit of music at her house, maybe do a little communion. I'm not sure, but I love the. I like shaking things up, so and nobody gets bored. But this has been a great study on the truths versus lies, and talk about the Holy Spirit and all of that. So just thank you.
Yeah, there's any number of these that we can go over tonight, but I kind of wanted to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You what?
I said we could go over any number of these tonight, but I kind of wanted to do that.
Enough of that paper.
Yeah, fine.
And
We're
I
good.
just didn't know if anybody had anything they wanted to talk about.
Which one are we going
Al,
You can pick one if you want to talk about it,
we can either do this or we can talk about something else he said.
or you can. Yeah, we can talk about anything. And if you didn't know, we can talk about anything.
We can. Yeah, we've tested those waters, haven't we?
Yes, but we're online now.
And I don't think that stopped us before.
Oh, you know what? I had something I left in my truck, but I had this thing about the symptoms of
Coronavirus.
coronavirus.
You really do? Oh, I was just being
No,
funny.
I'm serious because, you know,
I know, I'm being funny because-
give you some information.
Right.
Because the TV, every time we turn it on, they're talking about, that's why it's being funny.
Best thing you can do is wash your hands
Oh, yeah.
all the time.
I know, that's why my
And
hands are
what
hot,
I heard
because I wash
was-
them up too much all the time.
Like, it's not, the antibacterial stuff isn't the answer. It's just washing your hands
Just wash your hands
with soap and water.
30 seconds.
Yep, I heard the same thing.
That's what most people don't realize, the 30-second thing.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Hot as you can stand,
Nice.
too, also.
Sing happy birthday twice.
While you're washing your hands. You saying that because
Sing
it?
happy birthday,
Because
though.
that's what they said, that'll give you enough time.
Or
Sing
Twinkle,
happy
Twinkle,
birthday
Little Star.
twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That works too, depends on what you like.
Or you can
There you
count.
go. Or if, pick another song.
Which song you can sing better?
Yeah.
It's gonna feel way better.
Hold it.
Never went down to Georgia.
He's in behind, he's way behind, he's willing to look like a deal.
Right on.
And don't go to Costco to get any paper products or cleaning supplies, because
Oh, my.
they don't have any, or
There
water.
is none.
Really?
Really?
We
Seriously?
have, for the first time in the history of Costco,
Had to run on something.
they have had to put a limit on the amount of toilet paper, paper towels, and water
Really?
that members can buy, yes. If you go online right now and you go on Amazon and you search Kirkland Signature toilet paper,
Right.
you will see it online for sale for $45 a package.
Oh, wow.
And we are selling it for $16.99 a package.
Wait a minute, so how big is this, the
One
$45
roll, and
package?
it's awesome.
It's like
That's a
45.
big roll. One huge 16, you get 16, I think 16 rolls in a package
It's like being kissed by a
for
deer.
$16.99, and we can't keep it in the
Really?
store.
Huh.
We have sold Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we did over $3 million in sales.
Well, I don't understand the toilet paper run. Are people just expect to get the trots or?
Well,
No.
no, I think
They're not
they're
outside.
they're not wanting to
If
go
it gets
out in the public.
Sorry, I was a little slow in that.
So people are just stockpiling
Gotcha.
stuff because
That's what
they
I said to
don't,
Alicia
well,
yesterday.
they want to be able to go home and stay at home and not go anywhere and not expose themselves. So,
Have any of you
and
looked
they
at
also,
the
they
stats
say you should have, 2 weeks worth of food?
on the regular food?
So we haven't been able to keep canned chicken or canned food
No kidding.
either.
I'll be darned.
So just a lot of,
I've heard of-
I've never seen anything like it.
I've
ever.
just heard of a
It's a
couple
lot
of
of
big
fear.
events that were canceled on account of, one was, not that everybody know about it, but, one of the bigger bodybuilding shows, you know, the muscle guys.
Yeah.
That's been going on forever in
Arnold
Columbus.
over in
Ohio.
Columbus, yeah,
They
the
canceled
Arnold
it
Schwarzenegger
because of
Classic.
the
No
virus.
kidding.
Well, it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting is because I was actually talking with a member today who come in the store and couldn't believe it. And I said, well, you know, more people have died from the flu than have
Yeah.
died from the coronavirus.
Oh,
Way more.
More than
People
10
haven't,
times.
you know, and if you look at the
Yeah.
demographic is the same. And it's older people, you know, people over the age of 70 with compromised immune systems is the largest demographic
Yeah.
right now. So it's mostly elderly.
And it's not that it's not bad, but this is definitely being, they're fanning the flames on
I
this.
think probably the
Yeah.
thing that's scary
They
is
wanted
that
political
people from
season.
from every demographic have died.
Right.
So they have had a couple of healthcare providers who were young, doctor, nurse, die from it.
Well, and have you seen that picture of China, from NASA?
Oh, yeah, the one where the air
Isn't it
pollution's all.
weird?
How there's no air pollution.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they halted everything.
really?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
nobody's out.
from
Oh, it is.
space.
No
Uh-huh.
one's going out.
Is that what that was? Okay.
Well, they have the worst,
Or air pollution in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when they halted everything,
you can see the
Yeah,
difference.
you can see
What
the
countries
difference.
totally grenade? Because we're gonna probably end up not getting some of the Chinese-made items
Right.
over the next few months.
Well, if you look at a map of the United States where all the reported coronavirus cases are, they're all major cities with transportation hubs.
Yep.
Period. So I'm not going anywhere near an airport, not getting not going to get on a plane anytime soon. I would stay away
Well,
from airports.
We were scheduling our kids for Christmas this year. We didn't get them any, I mean, they got a little something, but not anything, but we're planning a vacation that we're gonna pay for, because, you know, Zoe's graduating college, might be our last chance. And we were looking into, I've never done it, I just thought it would be fun to do. We were looking into like an all-exclusive thing, like in Mexico.
Right, right.
We're not, we changed our mind because, I mean, we're not doing it till the very end of July, but there could be travel bans and all kinds of stuff by then.
Right.
that's true.
And a lot of that money's non-refundable. I hate that word.
That's a corker.
It's one of my least favorite words.
That's
Well,
fine.
I don't think that it's, you know, I think it's, fear is not.
There's a good topic.
Fear is not a natural response. It is an unnatural response.
So is it unnatural for us to not have fear about things we can't control?
Well, I think to think that we have control in the first place is an illusion.
Where's
That's
faith in
We don't
God
have
to
control of that.
look out for you? You know, where does
I don't know that it has anything to do with God.
just logic?
I think it
Common
has.
sense.
I think it has a lot to do with not putting too much faith in your mind, your thinking. You know, and in some ways not leaning on your own understandings. Because a lot of times it's like if you watch what people are doing, we know the reality of the flu. More people died from that. They had the same thing happen when SARS broke out. They had the same thing
Swine
happen when
flu.
Ebola broke out.
Yeah.
Now it's COVID-19 and the same thing's happening and people are going way over the edge.
Which 19 means it is
On
the
this.
19th strain. We just never heard of the
That's
other.
what that means.
So I think it's natural I think it's really, I don't know, people don't want to lose their lives.
Right.
And I think that their fear of death is what's causing this.
Yeah. That's good insight.
And I think, I don't know, what was you reading?
The stats from the flu, the regular flu.
Yeah,
It's a crazy number.
Staggering. Yeah.
yeah, it's staggering.
What is it?
32 million
Yeah.
have had the flu so far this season, regular flu.
How many have died from it? Some morbidity.
18,000.
18,000 and morbidity rate.
That's wild.
And they're talking 100 people, there's cases, not people dying, 100 cases in the United States.
310,000
100.
hospitalization. I know, that's
Why
why
is
it's
that?
like, why
Why does that
don't you
even
guys
talk
like
about?
calm
I
down?
saw something really,
Well,
really
you know-
funny today, but it was political, so I'm staying away from it.
That's why
Yeah,
me
good
is
idea.
running for mine.
I don't know,
everything
it's
else.
on the side you're on.
If you're on our side, go ahead and say it.
I think
If
it's,
not-
I think it's I think it is a natural, I think if you have no hope,
Right.
then
It's
fear
more
is a
scary.
natural response.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, if someone stuck a gun in my face, I think I'd probably be a little afraid.
So what
glad
do you
to know
want
that.
to take it
If I'm
out
being
of my
honest
face?
with myself, I'm probably gonna be a little afraid, and then also, I'm gonna be real mad too.
Yeah.
Because if you put a gun in my face, you better use it. You know, because I think once the fear wears off, then that's what's left.
Right.
You know, but at the same time, you know, what do you do in these situations where panic is everywhere? And it seems like that's what it is, it's panic behavior.
Yeah.
So I haven't really been out anywhere much since they, like stores or anything. Are people acting?
Do you notice
Do you
a
feel it
certain
or something?
type of person that's
No,
loading this out?
there's no
No.
rhyme or reason to it. Every demographic, every age, gender, race, sex, creed, origin, you name it, it is the full gamut. Everyone from top to bottom.
No kidding.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I keep forgetting about it, so.
it's not.
No, I don't even have to try to.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where when you're exposed to, you know, if you're only going into the store to get it, you don't see it. But I work in the store,
Sure.
and you see it,
Right.
and you see the.
There's a lot of toilet paper
it's
going out.
almost like a hysteria.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Well, people, I mean, they're not acting hysteric,
It's like a hurricane.
but
or something.
the
They're on a mission.
the consensus of behavior is hysterical.
like a compulsion almost.
Well,
it's-
it's like, once we had that blizzard, well, I remember when we had the blizzard back in '78 and everything,
Yeah.
and after that, anytime there was even a
Well,
thread of snow,
I
people
mean,
went to the store.
I think
I was
people
8
want
months
to be
pregnant.
prepared, but I also know that, you know,
Yeah.
for the next month and a half, we're not gonna be
That's
selling
all
any
that.
toilet paper or paper towels or water because
Canned food,
people have
yeah.
stockpiled months of it.
Right.
And
Oh,
good
that's
point.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won't need to.
so,
Do we need to get more toilet paper? It's like,
They're just gonna shop at another store.
Nope, we're good.
If they're-
you know, in some ways, I understand people are wanting, because they say that the gestation cycle of the disease, or the virus, is 14 to 28 days. So they say you should have 2 weeks of food on hand, 2 weeks of supplies.
I probably do.
Because once you are diagnosed, you're quarantined.
Mm.
You're not,
You're not allowed to go
I
out.
mean, you can't force people
saw-
to stay in their homes. That's
I
why the
saw
disease
something
is
funny
spreading.
the other day. It was, do you remind? I hadn't even thought about it, but it's been I don't know, a week or two ago, and it was some guy talking about his wife and her shopping. He said, "This is her bargain room," and he opens it up, and there was like, I mean, I'm trying to give a real figure, but there was probably 150 rolls of paper towels, and he said, "I guess I need to get busy spilling something."
Well, it's interesting because we know someone who compulsively shops. And if you go
Just
in their
on
house.
a good day, right? Normal.
Just all the time. And you go in their house and you go in their basement and there are piles and piles and piles of unopened packages.
I had
Of
a-
all kinds of stuff?
Yep.
Holy.
I had a cousin like that her house was like on hoarders, and just all through it was stuff that had never been worn, brand new saddles that had never been on a horse, 2 of those Kirby sweepers that,
Yeah.
What? I have a Kirby sweeper. If you're gonna say anything rotten about it.
I'm not.
Saying
But,
that they had 2 of them.
well, she had
Yeah, me too.
she had 2
Just one
Kirby
won't wear
sweepers,
out.
and you couldn't have swept her house unless you went there with tobacco first. Those sweepers were, those sweepers were low miles.
I didn't even think of that when you said order and sweeper.
2 of them. We dug out 2 Kirby sweepers.
Well, it's been weird. We had, you remember I told you guys about our friend who was getting married to a Haitian? He he was like kidnapped, and they were sending messages in Creole to have them send ransom money over. Anyway, he's here.
Still in Haiti.
He made
Yeah.
it back finally
American, she was here.
after 4 years of trying to get here.
What?
Oh yeah.
4 years?
Yes.
I thought it was like a year.
Yeah.
Was he a missionary or something?
Well, he's actually a Haitian,
She was
and she was a missionary in Haiti, and she was there for a while. They got engaged. 4 years of really weird, trying to get here. He couldn't. The Haitian government made it really difficult for him
4
to,
years? That's
to,
crazy.
to get his stuff done. So lots of weird stuff: bribery, stabbings, kidnappings. Got robbed and stripped naked one time, like just crazy, on his way to get his stuff. So anyway, he's here.
I hate it when that happens.
I know, right? He's here, and so I was sitting talking with him, and you guys are talking about like how difficult it is to, or some people who we often buy more than we need. We all do that. But he was talking to me because I was asking him about his story and his past. He's got 11 brothers and sisters, and they lived in this tiny little house. And he was telling me about how he was teaching, because he's a pastor's kid, and he spent a lot of time teaching. And he had this message called that he didn't call it this, but I would have called it this. Thank God for the cornmeal. And so for them, cornmeal is like the very basic
The
things
foundation.
that you can have. It's kind of like rice and beans.
Yeah, it's sadza. They call it
Yeah.
sadza or pop.
Okay, there you go. And so his message was thank God for the cornmeal, and he was just telling people to be thankful. And that was after him almost starving to death, literally.
It has
And
no flavor.
And so when he was here, what I was complaining about was having too much stuff.
Ah.
And then he told me the stories, and I'm like, man, we have weird problems.
I
That just made me think of that.
I remember the first time that we had, a lot of times with Horizon, when we brought somebody over from Africa,
Yeah.
they were poor. And the first time we had somebody that actually was fairly affluent that came over here, it was Jenny Carstens. And we'd go out to eat or something, and they'd put our drink out, and she'd just go. She wouldn't say anything, she'd just go. And take a picture of it. And then I noticed it. Of course, Bob never noticed anything.
That's
And
Bob.
He's like Mr. Magoo, just
He
wandering
is.
around.
That's
God's taking care of
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
He once walked through a circle of armed teens and didn't realize
I
it.
remember when he did that.
I was right behind him, and it's like every single kid had a gun, and he walked right through the middle of it.
People were being killed and stuff then.
Oh
I
yeah,
remember
everybody
that.
else had been ordered out when we flew in.
He was
Walked right through them behind a gas station. So yeah, lots of witnesses behind a gas station. But I noticed her doing it, and then at one time I remember she just looked. She was real calm about it. But then this one time, it was out here in what used to be the Post, and it was Eva's, and I also changed the names 37 times. Then finally at one point, it's like, obviously something has got her worked up. And she said, I've never seen drinks this big in my life. And hers was half full, and they brought her another one.
Oh, man.
And she was just blown away. And she was rich. I mean, by South Africa standards, she was pretty wealthy, and she'd never seen anything like that
Is
in
she
her
the
life.
same one that saw a bottle of water that somebody thrown out on a curb,
Probably.
and she cried
Yeah.
That is,
because of how hard it
I
is to get
understand
clean
that.
water.
I saw
And we just go, whatever.
in Zimbabwe.
ridiculous.
In Zimbabwe, you could starve to death with money in your pocket, and I saw people lined up. Let's think of a building. It would be enough to go. There was enough people lined up to go all the way around Taco Bell twice, outside of a grocery store. And I said, "What's the line for?" And he said, "There's a rumor they're going to have bread." And they were lined up that deep because there was a rumor about bread.
So what did you mean by have money in your pocket and starve?
Because
Because
there's
there's no
nothing
food
on
to
the
buy.
shelves.
Can't even buy anything.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It's
There's no money. The country is so broke. Like, this was the crazy one. This was one of the craziest things I saw the whole time I was there, and I saw some crazy stuff. All right, picture of the city bus. Now picture a filthy like the dirtiest bus you've ever seen. Now picture that bus crammed full like a subway car in New York City where everybody's standing, like breathing on each other. It's even better than that.
Yeah, it is.
It's being towed by a dump truck because the bus won't even run.
Oh.
And they can't get parts because their money's no good. So the buses are being towed through the streets full of people.
Wow.
But the scaredest I was the whole time I was there was by the Harare Police Department. They were way more scary than the thugs because they could kill you right in the street. Nobody's going to do a thing about it. 1 week after we left, the mayor. Now
Oh,
think,
that was the toughest
think
place he
about
was
this.
in.
That was a rough spot. Think about this. Harare it was a beautiful city. It was a modern, beautiful city. The roads are like velvet. They're better than ours. But now picture all the buildings in any big city you've been to, but most of them have the windows beat out and everything like that because there's just not. They would steal the traffic lights and take them across the border to Mozambique and sell them the traffic lights.
That was the earliest areas that Bob went into.
So, yeah, it was one of the very first places
Yeah.
we went. So, but in the city there of Harare, 1 week after we left, the mayor was drugged, because the mayor was a member of the Movement for Democratic Change, which was not Mugabe's party, Mugabe the dictator. The mayor was drugged out of the city building and stripped to his waist and whipped in the street by his own police department. And do you know what he had done? Now think about this. This is a city mayor of the capital city. He was stripped and whipped because he had a city council meeting without the president of Zimbabwe's permission
Oh my gosh.
by his own police department.
It's very different.
The police were setting cars on fire and raping women and beating people because some of the pastors that we met with were organizing a work slowdown, not a stoppage, just a work slowdown for basic human rights. And the police went to the streets and
Because of that?
restored order. Yeah, that was their idea of restoring order,
Oh, man.
and that was right after we left
Wow.
that all that broke loose. So when I hear, when it's hard to go from that to America,
And people complain here.
yeah, because there was only 2 fat people in Zimbabwe, and I came back home, and the other was the president. Me and Mugabe were the only fat people in that whole freaking country. And so then you come here, and we might be the only country where our poor people are fat. We have fat poor people. That's crazy.
That makes no sense.
Do you care if I read a scripture that challenged me today?
Yeah.
Like, really challenged me. I didn't know what to do with it, honestly. It's Luke chapter 16, verses 19 to 31. I didn't know exactly what to do with it, so I guess you guys can help me.
Chapter 16.
Luke 16, yeah, it's the rich man and Lazarus, a different Lazarus. There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. At his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus. He was covered with sores and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. This is a parable of Jesus.
He rose from the dead, right?
This is a different Lazarus.
Different one.
Different Lazarus. Right off the bat, I noticed the rich man doesn't have a name in here.
Just the rich man.
He's just the rich man. But then Lazarus gets the honor of the name. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In hell, where he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abraham far away, with Lazarus by his side. And he called to him, "Father, Abraham, have pity on me, and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony with this fire." But Abraham replied, "Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you, a great chasm has been fixed, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from there to us. He answered, "Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them so that they will not also come to this place of torment." Abraham replied, "They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them." "No, Father Abraham," he said, "but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent." And he said to him, "If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead." So I read that this morning, and I was like, I had a lot of conviction in my heart too. And just with this conversation, I'm like, boy, I've received a lot of good things.
Yeah.
You know? And I know it's a parable, but I didn't sit in it very long, but it seemed appropriate to share it tonight. Just as something you guys could chew on with me. Because I read it and kind of struggled a little bit, and I'm like, man, I don't want to be that rich guy.
Don't you think God, when he says we have plenty gifts, it's not just actual physical things, it's blessings or good people or being saved?
Right.
Do you think he means both? All in one fell swoop?
I don't know.
Receiving a lot, receiving
I think
plenty.
rarely is he talking about financial.
It's always.
I think there are times where it's clearly a financial gift that he's talking about. But
Right.
I think more times than not, it's not that. It's more about what you're thinking about.
It's in your heart.
The blessings that count. The taken time. Like, I think that one of the things that we miss is, and this goes back to that when we talked about whether we're not very good at giving, at receiving, we're not very good at accepting stuff, and that's wrong. I'm convinced it's completely wrong, because the blessing goes both ways. I think when we're talking about blessings, I think the person that is giving with a good heart is blessed by giving.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think that person, if you receive it with a good heart, so my effort to give things away, I just keep doing it, and it's just because it's very interesting to me. I
think it's harder to receive.
Yeah, if we have, it's our pride.
It's hard to get shut down when you're trying to give something to somebody too.
Yeah, I usually.
It like bothers me. Like, come on.
I think it's harder to ask.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That's probably the
than it
hardest.
is to receive
Sure,
or give.
absolutely.
There's the pride there.
But there's still racism, obviously, on both sides. That's not a new thing. But I've gotten to where I'm kind of militant about loving people. And so the other day I was in a place, and I definitely got the vibe that these 2 black guys didn't care for my presence. And I spend Speedway money like a drunken sailor, because I always have free Speedway money. Right this minute, I probably have $200 in Speedway money to spend. And
That means you spend a lot of money.
I buy a lot of gas.
Oh,
and I also I actually have a
Yes,
Speedway
okay.
charge card, so I'm doubling up at one of my points. So I enjoy being generous, but and then now I can do it even more. So anyway, these 2 black guys were in line, and I just I talk to everybody. That's no surprise, and I can just tell they just didn't want nothing to do with me. And I was telling actually a black customer about this named LaVar, and so I said they're waiting in line, and I said I asked them what they did, because they had white lightning on the back of their jackets, which I thought was funny because they were black guys wearing white lightning. So I said, "What is that? What's white lightning?" And they said, we power wash big semis. And I said, "Oh," I said, "Man," I said, "I've done a lot of that." I said, I grew up detailing and all that. No matter what I said, I was just like, shut up. So we finally got up there, and I'm just killing them with it. I'm just honest. So they both had chips and a Coke. And I said, "Is that all you guys are getting?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, just put that on mine." And the one that had been kind of the rudest, he looked at me and says, really? I said, yeah, do I look like I'm kidding? And he says, you're going to buy that? And I said, yeah. He said, you're in my way anyway. And so they laughed, and they went out and they got in this big truck. And I could see them looking at me like I was a circus freak. And I was telling LeVar about that. And he said, why did you do that? I said, I'm tired. I told him, I said, I'm tired of this passive-aggressive division. You're going to have to hit me in the face or hug me. I'm not having it any other way. And he laughed and laughed about that. But, I mean, I'm getting to that place. And it's really interesting that wanting to be kind and wanting to give to someone with absolutely no motive whatsoever, and how incredibly resistant some people are.
Because they think you do have it.
It's
There's
like, I just
just
want to buy it for you.
I actually had this guy was blind. I was counting change just about a year or two ago. Counting change. I had oil. I had to get oil to get to work. And counting up the times.
Right.
Not car,
Yeah.
not gas
So I
oil.
walked in.
Yeah, that's different.
He said, I got that. He didn't even buy nothing.
Right.
He walked in the store, saw me, paid for it, and walked out. He didn't even get nothing for himself. He just bought it for me.
That's awesome.
It was like, it made my day.
Yes.
There's
Still smiling about it.
a guy on
It was crazy.
YouTube or something.
I
that
know
will
where you're
go
going.
He'll go to grocery stores and he'll just cut in line, and people get mad. Like, how dare you? Well, I'm gonna buy your stuff. You know what?
Just shocked.
Have you seen that Amazon? I think it's an Amazon delivery driver doing the dance.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's so happy, and all it was,
Really
some,
bad weather.
some woman left out a box for delivery guys, and it said, help yourself. And
Like
he
snack
it was like chips,
Okay.
candy bars,
In
and a
the
bottle of
winter.
water. And he goes,
Before Christmas.
this is. You can see
Was it one of
through
those,
the-
like, doorbell
through the
things?
ring doorbell,
Yeah.
and he does a little dance as is on his way out, and it was like a bottle of water and
Yeah.
a couple of snacks.
It was.
Yeah, there was two or
It was
three
during
delivery
Christmas
guys
time.
in the-
Okay.
in that
All the
commercial. I
delivery.
don't know if
Okay.
they-
UPS and all of them.
I think I remember
Hitting
that.
it.
So
Yeah,
That
they-
was, and then
like
other
UPS
people
guy
started
in
doing
Maryland,
that around
all-
the country.
They did for all of us.
So,
That's awesome.
But, yeah, it's an interesting. It's interesting to. It's always. I'm almost surprised when they just accept it. When they just say, "Well, thanks." You know, that's so refreshing. Because literally, I mean, I've only had two people. I've been doing this quite a while. I've only had two people that immediately said yes. It was a German Baptist and a hippie.
There you go. See,
Every-
they're more used to sharing. I'm telling you, they are. They're most likely.
Yeah, and everybody
People
else,
being giving.
everybody else they'll deny it at least once.
Well, it feels like there's a catch.
There's always a string attached with everything.
But by the time we get to the third time, I'm buying it. For me, it's like, oh, well, now it's on. Now you're getting this. And, but yeah, that's why, I mean, it is kind of that, like, it's almost like militant love. Like, I'm just going to love on you.
Sure.
You're going to have to, we did it in sales at Cartwright. We always said, like, if someone says, we're just not interested, we really like this supplier we have, and we'd say, then you write in your outbook, go back in 2 months. And I always taught this. I'd say, unless they're rude to you, then you go back in 2 weeks. If they just are rude, it's like, oh, now you're buying. Now you're definitely buying. And so it's kind of this, I kind of feel the same approach. It's like, nope, I'm loving on you, and you can't stop it. But it's a weird, it's been a weird learning experience to see.
Women are probably more resistant, aren't they?
I don't do it to young women. I don't want to, I just think that could
Just
be
as the way things are.
weird. But older women, but honestly, everybody's resistant, other than that one hippie and that one German Baptist. And everybody else resisted. Everybody else turns you down at least one time. And I mean, like, no, you're not doing that. Like, it's not, you don't have to. No, you're not doing that. And then it's like, well, you don't have to do that. And it's like, I know I don't have to. You didn't even ask. And, but it's been great fun. It's one of the funnest things I do in my whole life. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but it's one of the funnest things I get to do. And but now it's become like the racial division I'm not having. So now, like, that's the best way to get me to step up and pay for it, is just don't be nice to me at all. Because then it's like, oh, now I'm going to come. Now you've been mean to me. Now I'm buying for you. You've been mean to me. We think it'd be the opposite, but it's like, no, I'm just not going to have that. And it's cool. It's fun. And but I just think that we're so lacking in that area, just loving on each
So
other.
tell me something, Ryan. What was it about this passage that was so hard for you?
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot, honestly.
The whole thing.
But for me personally, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff, because what I saw was the upside down kingdom here, where you've got this rich man who's nameless and this poor man who's got sores all over him.
Yes.
But in the things that really matter in eternity, the guy who would never have touched the guy was asking for his finger to be in his mouth, like with cold water. And so that transition from oblivious to the eternal truth to, oh my gosh, I just kill for a drop of water from the leper's finger in my mouth. Like, it's very different. But then I guess I read there was a couple of things, but the one was kind of like when you look in the Bible and you see a mirror. You've received your good things. When I read that, you've received your good things here. When I read that, I thought, boy, I think that I think that I could probably do better not desiring so much for myself. And so it's just kind of a pride check, I guess. And then it's just one of those things where I was like, maybe this is a check in my spirit, just to be aware that I've got more than enough. And then there was that, and then also just the urgency to share the good news with the people around me also, here, there at the end. And so those two things were what got me.
I don't think that it's bad that you receive good things, but I think it's not giving
Sure.
I agree.
would be more the situation.
Yeah, obviously I didn't want to draw a line in the sand. It was like, if you make
Yeah,
more than
because-
$21,615 a year, then you've had your, it's not that,
Yeah. yeah.
but it's more of a heart thing.
It is a hard thing.
So it was a heart check. Because I do want more things. I do want more. I'd love to have more income and more toys and more stuff, and I'd love that.
Really?
Let me just say,
I would.
When you,
really
when you
think
get
so?
when
Well,
you get older, that changes.
I figured
I
just
know, it's like
a nicer house and to have, you know what I mean, like
when you get older, you
more
want
things
less.
for my kids and.
You don't need any of that stuff to live.
I know, and I think that was the heart check. Like
Well, you always want more for your kids, so I don't know.
Stuff?
that
I don't
is-
know
No,
about
not
stuff.
stuff.
Here's
Not
my
just
struggle is
stuff.
not wanting more, but wanting what I have to be better.
Yeah, yes.
You know what I mean? It's not, I don't want more than what I have. In fact, I could do with less than what
Right.
I have.
Yeah, yeah.
We
But
all
I
do.
want what I do have to be to have value.
Right.
You know, I mean, I can be content with having something broken. But if I have a choice, if I can fix it, well, I want to fix it.
Right. I think that I've had
I don't know if that's because I'm a guy who's
fix. No, we couldn't even, where we came out of, we couldn't even maintain the stuff that we had. But we still had way too much stuff. And so we've had a lot of joy in getting rid of stuff, but we still haven't had like the financial freedom to just, the car's down, let's just take it in and get it fixed. We had to like wait
Oh, so you're
or
talking-
ask for, like I wanted to be able to, of course I want
You're not talking about I
more.
want a brand new car.
No, but to be able to not stress about
To be comfortable
That's
financially.
Oh.
comfortable. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
you know,
that's
the,
right.
That's one
they're
of
the
the
expression.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a mix, but I won't lie and say I don't have those thoughts as a
Yeah.
30-year-old
Right.
with dreams of, being a millionaire someday.
The,
I don't really, but there's,
I actually never thought about it.
yeah.
The expression that I've heard comes to mind is the freedom from fear of financial insecurity.
Oh, that seems like.
Freedom from fear of financial insecurity
Okay, yep.
does not mean you will not be financially insecure, but you will no longer fear being
Right,
financially
there you go.
insecure.
That's the problem. That's the mindset.
Right, because it's the fear that motivates us to become greedy, or want more, or demand more, or tell ourselves we need X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
And the truth is,
I think
we
that's
don't
part of
need any of it.
I think a lot of it is we
Some
think
learn
stuff
that.
is gonna make us feel
I have
better inside
That's why
or
we
happy.
never have
Talk.
stuff, you're appreciative of the stuff you do.
Many times about stuff.
Yeah.
We don't need that to live.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to the point when you become possessed by your possessions, life's backwards.
Right.
Well, the great theologian Spock said something many years ago on Star Trek.
Dr. Spock is what I'm thinking.
And he said, and I don't know why that's stuck in my head,
This,
This one, yeah.
but I probably, yeah.
There are two, though.
But he said something, and I was young, and I remember it, and it had to do with a woman. And I think it was a woman that Kirk was interested in, because he was always interested in.
I've never watched Star Trek.
Not the original
Not
series?
any of them ever.
Wow.
Or Star Wars, for that matter.
Captain
I'm
Kirk,
a little out of the loop.
William Shatner, Captain Kirk, was always the one with the hot alien.
Okay.
And Spock said it's better to want than to have.
Yeah.
And
Anticipation.
and I'm telling you, it's been so
Interesting.
true in my life.
It is true.
Like, I'll tell you the perfect example.
Not always.
Every young guy that I ran around with wanted a four-wheeler. Every young guy, back when I was young, four-wheelers were new. And everybody wanted a four-wheeler.
There were three wheelers.
And I got a four-wheeler, and I can remember thinking, this is the crappiest victory I've ever had in my life. It's like, I rode that dude around a little bit, and it's like, the closest thing I can compare it to is, you think that riding on a dog sled would be fun? It's not. You're just on a sled behind dogs. It's fun for like 3 minutes. And that's exactly how I felt about that. That's exactly, I rode that forward and I thought, this is $3,000 and it's a riding lawnmower without a blade on it. It's like, this sucks. And I can remember that. I just pushed it away and I didn't even ride it for a long time.
So there's something magical about the children, like a child,
Sure.
dreaming.
Anticipation.
You know what's interesting is that the thing that I hear what Spock says, it's
Right.
better to want than to have, but what always gets me is when the scriptures say, "The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want."
Right.
What does that mean?
Well, I think that's kind of where we're kind of getting to. Like now, as I get older, I want less. Like I'm just giving stuff away, and I just don't want stuff. And one of the things I thought was a great moment for me, like a victory, like the opposite of that four-wheeler. That four-wheeler just burns me to this day. But I remember a moment, and I like watching birds. I like any kind of animals, but I especially like birds. And I remember I saw an owl, which is my favorite bird. And I'm just mesmerized by this owl. And I was just watching it. I thought, that's one of the coolest things that I see. And never once have I thought, I wished I had an owl.
Right.
And so that was like a little moment. I think
That's cool.
alcoholics call it a moment of clarity. And it's like, I can do that with cars and trucks and women. I can look at that and say, that is really cool without immediately thinking, how can I get that?
Right.
And I think that was a moment where something really shifted in me to where it's like, I can appreciate stuff and not think, how
Have
can I
glasses on?
not how can I get one?
Own it.
I think that when we talk about wanting, like what I was sharing with you earlier, I think the caution here is against allowing want to create unhappiness or dissatisfaction,
Or covetousness.
I was going to say, or
Right.
covetousness. Yeah.
to where you become dissatisfied and unable to be grateful for what you have been given.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
It
it.
could be fun. A lot of people do that to fill a void too.
Absolutely.
No, that's true.
Boy.
I mean,
Temporarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I've scraped by for years because of bad decisions, and now that I just have normal stuff, it's like,
Well,
great. It's like,
Yeah.
just
As-
living normal.
as I've said,
I'm appreciative.
of course.
Yes.
I mean,
I've said many a time, if drugs or money or women or possessions would fill that void, Elvis wouldn't have died a lonely junkie sitting on a pot.
yeah.
He had all that. All of it. And was a lonely, miserable, lost person. And so you can quit looking, you know, that's not it. And so I think that that's such a profound thing, I shall not want.
You know, it's just, I felt, you know, it's funny because when I read that, you know, in some ways it sounds like the author is saying it in a way that is comforting to himself.
Right.
Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In other ways, I sometimes read it and I hear a commandment. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
Or
You know what I mean?
even,
Sometimes I feel like it is something that demands obedience. Sometimes I feel like it's something that is comforting.
it could have even been his prayer, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to want, you know what I mean? Like, I shall not want, like, you know, almost like he's like he's speaking affirmativeness into his life, like,
I shall
you
not
know,
want.
Yeah, I see
My
it
shepherd,
as,
I shall not
if
want.
the Lord is your shepherd,
He leads
truly
me
in your
beside
heart,
still waters.
then you believe that He
His rod and
will
his staff, they comfort me.
supply your needs and you won't have one.
My cup
Right.
runneth
That's all
over.
right.
Oh, yeah. The lie down thing,
Cup
too.
runneth over.
Yep.
So I have more than what I need. I have everything I need plus more because I have the Lord.
And that's what Lazarus
I
would say.
shall not want.
yeah.
He had more than he needed.
So the guy who had everything had nothing.
Had nothing. That's the
guy
upside
who had
down.
nothing had everything.
Yeah. And I think that was the point of his
It's the
parable.
same thing Jesus said when he said, "He who is least shall be first, and he who is first will be least."
Well, that goes right back to the
Yeah.
part in 1 Corinthians about being tested with fire. And if your work is burned up, you'll make it to heaven, but you'll make it as one escaping through flames. And I think that's talking about building up your possessions instead of
Right.
building up Jesus in your life.
It doesn't say that the camel
Stuff.
won't pass through the eye of the needle, but it doesn't tell you what a long bloody mess the camel's going to be when he gets through it. You know, right?
Yeah.
The thing that this is the scripture that actually, when
It
I
is,
was
actually.
in Africa, I really struggled. I was great in South Africa because South Africa is beautiful, and the people are tall and beautiful, black and white, and they still have hope. And then when I got to Zimbabwe, imagine a city the size of Indianapolis, because I first landed in Harare, and every adult.
Oh, that's where you landed?
That was my first stop after South Africa. And when I landed, imagine a city full of people, and every one of them, when you look at it in their face, it's obvious that they're without hope. It was like a city of zombies almost, just drones. And I just fell apart. I saw a dump. I won't go through the whole thing. I'll give you the short version. We drove by. When I was a kid, your mom would say, "Clean up your room. Looks like a city dump." Well, we don't have city dumps. We put our dumps way out in the country. Harare, Zimbabwe has a city dump. It's a mountain of garbage in the city.
People shopping.
All the way around it. Oh no, worse than that. All the way around it. You know how when you're a little kid, you set up a little rickety lemonade stand? It was grown men with like lemonade stands, only they were selling stuff they dug out of the garbage, trying to get enough money to buy their families a
I
cornmeal.
remember you talking about
And so by the time we got to, and they lost my luggage, and there ain't anybody close my size. And so it was in a mess. I was just in a mess, and I'm out of control. I'm a control guy. And by the time we got to, it was the only night I had a room to myself, and I had some kind of a breakdown. I was just like freaking out, like sobbing, crying, snot, the whole thing. And for some reason, I remembered a verse from a children's church lesson that Sharon Pearson, of all people, had showed it to me. And to me, you talk about fixing things. That's a great thing. Because like when I fix something, not only do I fix it and I get a little bit of, maybe a little stroke of pride, but I saved it.
Yep.
Like it's not going in the dump. I saved that. And so when you land in Harare, Zimbabwe, it's like, oh, well, I'm not saving this. Well, nobody's saving this. And then I don't have any idea, it was one of God things, but it came to me and it says, and I thought, well, my thought was, how am I going to help these kids when every time I look at them, I break down and bawl? And then I found this, and it's from Deuteronomy. And how many times do you hear me quote from the Old Testament? For there will never cease to be poor in the land.
Yeah.
Therefore I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy, and to the poor in your land. And instantly when I read that, it's like, oh, I'm doing that. I'm actually doing that.
I don't have to fix the
I-
whole problem.
I'm not going to fix it. And not only that, we're never going to
I
fix
just
it.
have to hold my hand open to
Right.
the next person that comes
We're
by.
never fixing
So
it.
you know what's interesting about this, because you bring up something that's really, really interesting, and it's this. There's this thing that happens when you're presented with a challenge, a difficulty, a responsibility. However big or small it may be, how big it is to you, right? Let's just say it seems overwhelming. And you can't, if you continue to focus at all of it,
Yeah.
you do nothing.
Shuts you down.
Yeah.
You go nowhere. And you remain stuck in feeling how you feel about all of
It's
that.
defeated right out of the gate.
Right?
Yeah.
But the minute you take action
Yeah.
to do something, all of that goes away.
That's my
Start
office.
somewhere.
That's the mess of my office.
But it's interesting because when you're in the problem,
Right.
you don't see the solution. You only see the problem.
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why I believe we need each other.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like everybody in
Because
my family the last 20 years.
if, you know, it's kind of like this saying I heard one time in, I think it was a White Heart song. I don't know if you remember White Heart, but it's a band, Christian band from the 80s.
I thought it sounded familiar.
If I am all I see, then I am all I know. But if he is all I see, then he is all I know. So I always thought that was interesting because it was like, oh, if I'm all I see, in other words, what happens is when I focus on the big problem, I'm focused on me solving the problem.
Right.
But it's not up to me to solve the problem.
No.
And I need to remember that because you know what? I'll be honest with you guys. I've learned a lot. I've been very wise in my lifetime. I've been amazingly wise in my lifetime. And you know what? I'm only as wise as my next decision.
Right.
And all of that, no, seriously, all of the things I've learned, I can forget. I can forget today what I learned a day, a week, or a month ago.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if any of you guys experienced that, but I have experienced that.
Sure. Right.
So the wisdom I gain is only a gift, and it's only mine as long as I use it. And if I don't use it, there it goes. And a day, a week, or a month later, I'll make the same bad decision, or I'll lose faith in my ability to. I forgot. Oh yeah, I did this before.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did. Man, I've been so wise. I forgot. You know.
Or even when something like, even where it's not even wisdom, it's like where you remind yourself, like, oh, I don't do that. I don't do that anymore.
Right.
Like you'll start to do something
Oh, sure.
stupid or self-serving or
Well,
bad.
Or
here's the
bad.
thing.
Oh, I don't do
the
that
thing
anymore.
the thing that's humbling is when you do it and you get caught or you get in trouble, and then you have to face the reality that I do that still.
Right.
Yeah, I am that person. I was that person. I am still that person, and that's it's interesting because we talk about those scriptures that say, you know, I am a new creation. I'm no longer that person, but I am that person if I act like it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we just drove by.
It's just interesting because to me, it seems like ideas are good, thoughts are good, but the belief, if it doesn't change me, or if my life, if I'm not transformed by that belief, then I need to get rid of that belief for one that works. And if I'm continuing to make bad decisions or it gets me in trouble, then whatever I'm telling myself is not true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just teed up my Sunday message. Thanks.
Cool.
It's ready.
I just think it's hard for me to say, okay, if I'm doing the right thing, then the byproduct of doing the right thing is I get to feel good. If I'm not doing the right thing, I don't get to feel good.
Right.
You know, if you do the wrong thing and you feel bad, it's because you're supposed to feel bad when you do the wrong thing.
You
It's
usually
not,
know the end result.
that's usually the way it goes. And a lot of times what we do is we tell ourselves, well, I'm a good person, I should have to face that consequence. I shouldn't have. That's not the case, you know. The only way out is to go through, not to try and circumvent or cheat the, not
The
to
formula.
pay, not to pay the piper or pay the ferryman, so to speak. You've got to go through it.
Well, and also just reminding yourself that you're really not that good. You know what I mean? Like, I still have to, I'll remind myself, like,
Not as
yeah,
wise as I think I am.
right, I'm just not that good. And,
Just not that
and,
good.
I think that a lot. I think, I'll be, it's not that
I'll
I'm
give you
beating
an
myself
example.
up, but I'll think I'm just, you're
I'll
not
give you an
that
example because I think you're probably a pretty good driver.
Most
Everybody,
of the time.
I speed.
Okay.
I've gotten tickets.
Right,
Okay. I don't think about the consequences until the cop's in my rearview mirror.
right.
Right?
Yeah.
So what does that tell you about me and my nature? Right?
Good
I'm
ticket
willing to
caught.
do the wrong thing as long as I don't get caught.
Right.
You're not very slick.
That's a really bad theory.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about theories. I'm talking about in practice. And if you look at, all you have to do
But you do it anyway.
is get up in the morning and get on the interstate and drive the same speed as everybody else, and you know
And
that
you're all
everybody
speeding.
thinks the same way.
Right.
And it's okay as long as there's not a cop in my
And you
ear.
don't get there any quicker, really.
No.
You might say maybe a couple minutes. Or they catch up with you and, you're at the stoplight.
But it doesn't really make much of a difference in the end.
Well, and it become that, I don't know if this even plays into it, but speeding becomes a habit where you're speeding when you don't even need to be speeding.
Right.
And I think there might be some truth to that in our lives, where
Too tight.
we're doing things like,
Compulsively.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that goes on and the flip side of that is, like, I'll tell you a phrase that people say that makes me want to slap them right in the face. If you want to know
Tell
what it
us
is,
what
this
it
is
is
it.
like.
Well, that's just how I am.
Oh, yeah, I don't like that one.
Really? So you're
Until
the
you try to change it.
really? So this is you? This is the finished product? Really?
Let me ask you.
Oh my gosh.
Here, you bring up a great.
It's a cop-out.
You have set the stage perfectly. Okay. So imagine this. Okay. Whatever that compulsion is, whether it's speeding, or eating, or sex, or money, or possessions, or drugs, or alcohol.
Right.
What happens when whatever that is, and you don't want to be that person, and you try, and you try, and you try, and you fail, and you fail, and you fail, and you ask God to take it away, you ask God to take it away, He doesn't take it away.
No.
How long do you endure the failure?
Well, I endured the fat failure for quite some time now. And
But-
trust me,
but
I'm
see,
afraid.
what I'm saying is there comes a point where the failure becomes despair
Yeah,
and you lose hope.
yeah. I was there.
And so that is a real place.
Yeah.
That's a real place. And you can want to change it, but it's kind of like when the Bible, in the scriptures, it talks about repentance. And people say, well, I repented from that, I turned from that. And I think, how arrogant are you to think that you did this on your own when repentance is a gift from God?
Right.
And if God wants to take it from you, He will.
Right.
You won't stop Him.
Right. Yeah.
But if you're suffering, then your suffering has to have a purpose.
Oh, I agree 100%.
What's the purpose? So why does the suffering continue?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I think part of it is. I use the expression, the language of divorce.
Okay.
I don't speak that language. I'm going somewhere. Back in the day, Larry Holmes fought Tex Cobb. Tex Cobb was a big white guy
Right.
who was not that great of a boxer. He's just a big tough guy. And Larry Holmes just beat his brains out. Today they would have stopped that fight. But he just beat his brains out forever until the last bell rang. And Tex Cobb, his mother wouldn't have recognized him by that point. And Tex Cobb says, "Didn't knock me down, Larry. Didn't knock me out. Sir, hooray for you. Brain damage, but you survived."
Yeah.
So my thinking on that's the long-term suffering,
Right.
even when it's self-imposed suffering.
Right.
When we get victory, we're going to speak that scar language or that wound language. So, like,
Right.
if you've been divorced, have you been divorced?
No.
Okay. So, if you've been divorced, I'll use you. I apologize. If you've lost a child and you survived that, well, hooray, you survived it. So what? You survived it. But if you use that wound then to speak into the lives of other people who are wounded,
Right.
well, now we got a whole different ballgame going on. Now that's a victory where you, I think, are almost glorified by God, because at that moment God can see, look at Sally. She's not just up on her feet. There she is. I don't want to give you too big of a head, but like Job, but like Job, you know what I mean? Look what all he went through, and then he was still praising. He's still able to praise God.
That's right.
And so, what good? I don't want to be Tex Cobb. I don't want to just take my beating and just say, "Hey, I'm still standing up." I want to take my beating and use it for something.
Right. But you have something. What happens when you don't have that thing that gives you hope?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I can't imagine.
But yet there are literally thousands of people who are dying
Yep.
because they have no hope.
None.
None.
Not a speck.
And that ought to give us urgency
Yep.
in our hands and feet of Christ, you know.
I mean, I'll be honest with you guys, there are problems I have. I won't say problems, but yeah, there are problems I have in my life that in 54 years I have not been able to solve.
Sure, I'm right there with you.
You know, and so I've gone through periods of time where I'm just angry at God. I mean, I believe He's big enough. He got big shoulders, you know what I mean? He's big God, He can take it. He knows, right? I still believe that, and it's okay for me to be angry at God because I don't see the purpose in this. What more? There's nothing more I can do on my own strength, apart from God, praying, meditating, asking Him, what more do I need to do?
And even for other people, like, hey, God, this sure looks like a good place for a miracle.
Yeah.
Why not Him? Like when you're praying for someone it's curtains. I mean, it's a wrap. They're dying. Modern medicine's not going to fix them. I mean, and sometimes it's like you talk about, like you're almost aggravated. Like, gee, God, He's an awesome guy. This seems like a great place for you to show up and be all godlike, and it's just not how it works. But at least even there, I still have that hope, and like I say, hopelessness. I can't think of anything much more terrifying than true hopelessness.
I don't think there's any.
I think trying to understand that's like trying to understand
I
all
think-
the things that He created on this earth, all the species.
But if you've read Pilgrim's Progress, okay, by Bunyan, right?
Yeah.
And in the Pilgrim's Progress, Bunyan talks about this thing called the Slough of Despond. Okay? And it's like a tar pit. That once you go down into it, you can be extracted from it, but the tar clings to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you've ever been hopeless, that hopelessness can still cling to you.
Yeah.
It's like opening a door. You know, when we use our will to please God or to serve God or to serve ourselves, right? Once you open the door to serve yourself, it's a whole lot easier to go and open that door. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Same thing. If you come up out of that Slough of Despond, you're familiar with something that's been your environment
Yep.
for years, and you come out of it, and you don't know how to behave when you're not.
It's like
when
saving
it's not
your-
around you.
It's like saving your crutches after God heals your withered leg.
Exactly.
Still got my crutches over there. I can go back to them anytime I need.
Occasionally, you may pick them up and walk around on them
Absolutely.
And even limp.
because I feel sorry for yourself.
I'm used to that.
Oh,
There's my crutches.
self-pity. There's some comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just put a sermon series idea down today called The Void. And
Yeah.
when we came out of, we sold our house. Awesome. So there was a lot of
Yeah.
financial freedom.
Yeah.
What do I do with the anxiety that I have? Because there's a void there. And so how am I going to fill that void? I think picking
Well,
up the
see-
crutches is kind of one of those things where I got to find something else to be anxious about. It's my environment.
Listen, this is not a story. This is true. This has actually happened when I had been set free from alcoholism 3 years after I got sober. Okay? Just to kind of give you an idea, 3 years later.
Wow.
Okay? 3 years after the fact, I'm in the kitchen of my apartment. I'm washing dishes and I'm whistling. I'm happy. The moment I became aware that I was happy and I was whistling, I stopped.
I remember you telling me about that.
And I was freaked out by it because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was.
It's wild.
You know, when we talk about joy, or we talk about freedom, to me, that takes on a whole new meaning, because when you talk about joy, but you haven't experienced it, that word doesn't mean anything.
Right. That's the old we don't know what we don't know.
Right. You know, it's always the truth that the realization of a truth will always be deeper than the knowledge of it.
Yeah.
The realization of the truth will always be deeper than the knowledge of it. So being full of self-knowledge, I can speak for days about myself, but without the realization of the truth about myself, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, and that goes back to that you're just not that good thing I was talking about.
Right.
Because, like, I feel like I'm kind of this new, improved Eric. But I thought that before. Like, I thought that before when I was not.
So you're proving that we all can be improved upon.
So it's like,
So what's next?
it's easy for me to remember, like, you're just not that good. And so you get that test that reminds you. And so it's kind of like being smart. Like, when we're 30, we think we're smart. And then we get to be 50 or 40 or whatever it is, and you think, wow, I wasn't very smart back then at all. And so I don't think that ended. Like, I'm pretty sure that's going to happen again.
Yeah, it was pretty.
I think I'm gonna do this again and look back and go,
You know what?
that wasn't right.
I'm gonna throw something out because God is good, and He always brings these things to my mind every time somebody does this. But there's a poem. I want you to look it up, and I want you to read it. It's called "Relapse" by C.S. Lewis, and the poem is about the pain once born must be born again. And it's a spiritual concept about our pride and how our pride separates us from the humility that brings wisdom. And it's about bearing a pain or bearing your cross and thinking that you've accomplished it, and then the pain that was born once, and something may happen to trigger it, and that pain that was born once must be born again.
Okay.
Interesting.
And it's not so much a freedom as it is, it's not so much a graduation, like I've graduated, I've evolved past that. It's more of a, God has a place He wants you to be, and He has a place He wants you to stay in order for Him to be in, for you to be, this is compatible. For His presence in your life, this humility is compatible. And once you've graduated, you forget about that humility, and that pain comes back and it visits you again to remind you of why you need to be compatible with God. Right?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Think
it's
a
an
lot.
interesting, it's a great poem.
Yeah.
I love the
Well,
poem.
thank you.
It's a powerful one, and he has a lot of good stuff. He has a book called Poems by C.S. Lewis. It's actually full of just good stuff. But it was just something I was thinking about.
I'll check it out. We just bought a book of poetry here.
Abe Lincoln was a poet. He wrote tons of stuff.
He was an odd dude.
I like him.
And
I did too. But he was really odd. I mean, he had his spirituality and stuff was way out there. He was an odd rod.
He is. I actually read the poem to them. It was about like when you get a limb that gets gangrene and it needs it amputated, you amputate whatever that is so it doesn't destroy the rest of the body.
Yeah.
So he kind of associates that with your life.
Oh, sure.
If something's destroying you, you get rid of
He
it.
was talking about that after you.
After he did his loppers and
He was talking
could-
about that after you, in your sermon a week or two ago.
oh yeah, yeah,
About
the
pruning.
pruning. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Well, final thoughts
I can't word it verbatim. But
No,
it was good.
I mean,
as we close out here today.
I don't have any final thoughts because I know as soon as I have a final thought, I have another
That's true.
a better final thought.
I'll take this opportunity.
I'm gonna suspend my right to have a final thought for later.
I'll officially. Yeah, there you go.
Final
There you go.
shots is too
I,
far.
like I say, I reserve the right to be completely wrong about this before I say it.
This is a non-refundable final thought.
It is.
I hate that. No, here, I'll officially ask you if I can use your quote.
Sure.
Three years ago, you did the sermon that I'm going to do on Sunday
Really?
on silencing the word. Yeah. And so, if nothing else, you were consistent tonight with what you said, because I have a quote in here
Really?
that I'm going to use from you. You ready to hear it?
Really? Yeah.
So, this is your final thought from 3 years ago.
Right.
I had a head full of information, but not an ounce of revelation. I had knowledge of the truth, but no realization. You
Oh my gosh, you
said that.
just said that.
Yeah, knowledge with no realization. So I'm running with that Sunday. I'm excited about it.
Well, I think that
I guess that would be the
there is.
There's a lot more to it. Please come.
But you know, if you think about, I guess my final words would be.
All right. Non-refundable.
But
Just say
actually
it.
said it was like, I mean, the beer.
Freedom.
Where'd that come from?
We so many times we get tripped up in freedom being defined in terms of egalitarian ideologies, like I'm free to be a consumer of, I can buy anything, or I'm
Right.
free to go anywhere, I'm free to do this, and that's not freedom. When we begin to define our freedom in the material, then we lose the realization of our freedom spiritually.
I know what Janis Joplin said. She said freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. She might have been right.
Yeah.
Because if
Me
we,
and Bobby
you know what I mean?
McGee.
Because that's like that, what we're talking, right back to the material things, you know, like true freedom. I might be being influenced because I've been reading the hippie book, but
What's with you and the hippie thing?
I don't know. But I mean that not caring about the material stuff, that would be a huge step towards freedom, to just not care about that stuff.
Or just devalue and destroy your life to the point where you have nothing left to lose.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's kind of like there's another poem by C.S. Lewis
All right.
called The Ruin. And it's about what we have built of ourselves in our lives. And as the ruin crumbles, we should be grateful to God that He would destroy it.
Interesting.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So it's what we have
Him and
made
Todd
of,
Faulkner get along.
what we have made of ourselves. So,
That's like
a lot of good thoughts.
That's like the sermon I heard about the guy that he talked about our soul like an old farmhouse.
Right.
Which at that time I had just bought an old farmhouse. It was a giant money pit. And he said, when you buy an old house, he said, you go in knowing
Yeah.
what
yeah.
needs to be done. You know you had to replace all the windows.
Right.
But once you get in there, you find out there's some stuff that you didn't know.
Right.
Well, he said, when you give your life to Christ, you expect, you know he's going to replace the windows.
Right.
And you know he's going to tear out that gold shag carpet. But then all of a sudden he starts tearing something else like
He's ripping up the foundation.
Yeah, like, hey, we were actually thinking we were planning to save that wall.
Hey, wait a second.
That's a
Wait a
load-bearing
second.
wall.
Hey, yeah, well, see, and that's the hard part. The hard part is not when God takes away the things you know are objectionable. But
Right.
when He comes in, He starts cleaning out the house on the things you think are good.